masculinity, but that was actually an attack on masculinity that was God-given. And so we don't twist it. When you say masculinity, the man is masculine, that does not mean that a man goes and beats up people and pounds on his girlfriends or wife. That has nothing to do with it. That's a whole different thing. Um, a, a man who's masculine that's the way God made man to be. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's a beautiful thing. So, um, with that, but with the femininity, that's a different thing because actually the opposite is that women are now not wanting to be this, feminine. They're not wanting to be that woman that God has created us to be. They've turned into something else. They are carrying the Jezebels, and we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. Right here, and let me get my glasses on here, and we will get it now. As first, before I say anything, I got my research from the Bible, and I sometimes go to this site when I'm doing research for school, and I need a little more biblical information or research. This is one of the things I go to, and it's called Got Questions, biblical questions and stuff. And so I'm also uh, getting some information from this website as well. And so let's get into this. We'll kick the tires and light some fires on this whole thing here. Now we know that Jezebel was raised. She was not raised to worship the Lord. She was raised to be in that to worship Baal and all of its lewdness and degradation and um, all that horrible idol worship of another god. So when with Ahab uh, and the two were both they both worship Baal, and as we remember when Elijah, not Elisha, Elijah went to war with um, Ahab's army, and they showed how the Lord wiped out his army, and he accepted and just took up Elisha's offering. Um, right there, they got to see the power of that, and this is what I'd like to hone in on. We won't go into the rest of the story. But Jezebel was so angry, and she said that she told Elijah that she was going to kill him. She was going to come after him and kill him. And he took off. Okay. I mean, I don't know why, but as you know, in this how the story goes, but we want to focus on Jezebel because we're going to get familiar with her character. Okay, so one of the characteristics or traits of the Jezebel spirit is having an obsessive passion to dominate, or is very domineering and controlling of others, especially in the spirit realm. And it says when she became queen, she began a relentless campaign to rid Israel of all evidences of Yahweh's worship. And she ordered the extermination of all the prophets. And you can find that in 1 Kings 18:4 and 18:13. And she replaced everything with all the Baal worship. And again, when we talked about her and Elijah, she said her strongest enemy was Elisha, who demanded a contest on Mount Carmel between the powers of Israel's God and the powers of Jezebel and the priests of Baal, which is in 1 Kings 18. And of course, God won, but despite the hearing of all the miraculous powers of the Lord, Jezebel refused to repent. And she swore on her gods that she would pursue Elijah relentlessly and take his life. Her stubborn refusal to see and submit to the power of the living God would lead her to her hideous end, which you can read about in 2 Kings 9:29 to 37. Okay, so we know the first trait is being dominant, domineering, and controlling of others. The second trait is, now you have to excuse me with some of these names if I don't pronounce them correctly. It says, talks about Naboth, who refused to sell Ahab the land adjoining the palace, right directly. But that was his inheritance, and he felt that to sell it would be against the Lord's command. And you could find this in 1 Kings 21:3 and Leviticus 25:23. So while Ahab was angry and he was moping around and, oh, they won't sell this to me, Jezebel taunts him and she ridicules him for being weak and not doing anything, but she taunts him as well. Then she takes over and proceeds to have innocent Naboth. She frames Naboth and stones him to death. Then she goes after Naboth's sons and stones them to death. So there was absolutely no heirs to this land, which then would revert back to the king. So she got what she wanted. She framed him, and then she killed his sons to get that land. Now look at that spirit there. And such a single-minded determination to have one's way, no matter who it destroyed in the process, is a characteristic of the Jezebel spirit. The infamous Jezebel's sexual immorality and idol worship that the Lord Jesus himself refers to her in a warning to the church at Thyatira in Revelations 2:18-29. Most likely referring to a woman in the church who influenced it the same way Jezebel influenced Israel into idolatry and sexual immorality. And Jesus declares to the Thyatirians that she is not to be tolerated. Whoever this woman was, like Jezebel, she refused to repent of her immorality and her false teaching, and her fate was sealed. The Lord had cast her onto a sickbed, along with all those who committed idolatry with her. And the end for those who succumb to a Jezebel spirit is always death and destruction, both in the physical and in the spiritual sense. So the best way really to define the Jezebel spirit is to say anyone who acts in the same manner as Jezebel did. Now, engaging in immorality, idolatry, false teaching, an unrepentant sin, self-seeking, control, dominating, being, very much of the flesh, and a big thing, self-seeking, as you got to see when she went after Naboth. He wanted land. They wanted that land, so she did whatever she had to do to get that land. She framed him, just like the Pharisees lied about Stephen. Oh, let's make something up, and so we can get rid of him. And that's how she is now. We're going to relate this to toxic femininity. If you look today, how these feminists are, they come to me and say, you're bad for women, you're dangerous to women, you are anti-woman. It's like, absolutely not. I'm actually very pro-woman. I'm anti this radical toxic feminist that's going on with this Jezebel spirit. This Jezebel spirit wants to emasculate men, which you got to see how Jezebel would emasculate and character assassinate Ahab when he didn't do something right, or, just whatever reasons. And that's what a lot of these feminist women do today with men. And you could see the toxic masculinity actually became a thing. And they were even getting men, brainwashing men to go, oh, we need to get rid of toxic masculinity. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this to yourself? There is nothing wrong with being masculine, being the way that God made man. And there's a full out war on that. And when you look today, look at all the men that have getting these surgeries, that totally taking everything to remove everything physically there, of men, and dressing, becoming a woman, dressing like a woman, and saying, oh, I'm a woman, just totally killing off the male character, the masculine male that God had made, just totally destroying it. And interestingly enough, I think I mentioned it before, but I'll bring it up again. Jezebel had always surrounded herself with eunuchs. So these eunuchs, they weren't the manly men, they were eunuchs, and that's what she surrounded herself with. And if you see today, all these men and these women who want power, and they're not going to have men control them, and men are this, or men is doing this, men should this and masculate, become more feminine. Yeah, so that women could have more control over them, just like the Jezebel spirit. Be careful with, like, you see these feminists who want to be in control. They want to dominate everything. The Boy Scouts were ruined because all of a sudden they had to have girls. They pushed and pushed. They had to have girls in the Boy Scouts. You didn't see boys get a brownie, a campfire girl, but all of a sudden they put, oh, girls must be in Boy Scouts. Like, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Nope, they destroyed it. I don't even think, I'm not sure about this. Somebody can enlighten me on it and let me know that if they still do in some states, have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, not the Girl Scouts. I know the Girl Scouts are still running. They put up their cookies. But Boy Scouts and the scouting, without having girls in it. I don't, I know some places they just said, the heck with this. If you're going to push to have a girls in Boy Scouts, forget it. Now I know, excuse me, that there has been some issues of things, wrongdoings within the Boy Scouts itself. That's, was it still a thing? But just those kinds are now, women wanting to, make them equal to men, and they just want to destroy the whole framework and the whole fabric of what God had created. And that's that Jezebel spirit, because as I read to you and we talked about, she had a full out war to go against anything that had to do with Yahweh, anything to do with the prophets, anything to do with Jesus, or with God, anything to do with that, anything, it had to be destroyed. And to her death, it was one of her eunuchs who ended up pushing her over. But this is seeing today, so radical. Even when you talk, we look, and there's those suffragette women, and it's like, back in the day when the whole suffragette thing actually was a thing, was actually created, was because they had a legitimate fight to be able to vote. And they wanted, at that time, there was a lot of and stuff, and um, but they just wanted to be free of that, and they wanted the right to vote. They worked, you know, they were citizens of the United States. They had every right to vote. So, that's what they fought for. But those, feminists of that day, they were pro woman, they were pro life, they were very much pro life women, having their babies and stuff. This spirit of Jezebel that has come upon these women who, I mean, it's not just I want the right to my body anymore, or I want decisions, or what if I was, which is 1% of women are raped, okay, or there's an incest. 1%. The 98% is typically the woman's choice. I'm jumping in this lane just for a second, and uh, doctors, after doctor had said, when they use the excuse, oh, what if the baby's going to harm, the pregnancy is going to mother, you have to abort. What if the baby is completely deformed and it's going to die, it's not going to make it, you need to abort it. The doctors have said, never do you abort. Never do you abort. You just, if it's that kind of a situation, they always have the mother give her early. They just bring her into, start delivery early, born, and then they take care of the baby at whatever stage it is. But they said there is never a reason to abort. Okay, so those are the truths, and there's more than one doctor that has said that. There's doctors there that have that same spirit, which I will say right now, that you don't have to be a woman to have the Jezebel spirit, okay? But you can see it more. You could see it more uh, in the women, in this feminine. But back to that, um, these women now that are at these, like when they came at the pro-life march, you could see the difference. There was the very evil Jezebel Python spirit that is with, because when they had the March for Life, it was a beautiful thing. There was, the speeches when they were marching, you could just see the people were just. It was just so full of love and wanting to fight and protect the unborn. Um, some people take it from cradle to grave, pro-life. So, but as soon as it was over and everybody was kind of hanging out, talking, and dispersing a little, here comes the pro people, jumping up and down with their bullhorns, putting them in the faces of pro-lifers that marched, just causing trouble, screaming in their faces, screaming in their ears, putting the signs up in their faces. See, you could see the total difference. And then the looks on these women's faces when they're killing their own children. There's been that complete disassociation with them. Completely. It's like they act like it's a tumor that needs to be removed or something, and not their own child. They have completely blotted all that out, all those facts. Excuse me. And so you can see that feminist spirit there. You can see that feminist spirit where um, with the men today, and how they are trying to emasculate men and punish men for just being men. You can see how they character assassinate men. They, any little thing. If a man, today, and I feel sorry for guys, I really do, because there's so many men, you know, uh, that are brought up to be gentlemen. Okay, granted, not, just same with women. Not every woman was brought up to be, have a little class and self respect. And, there's guys that, same up to have manners, be gentlemanly. But the men that were brought up by their parents or even by their mom that said, you're going to be a gentleman and this is how you're going to. So they know how to treat a woman. They're a gentleman. But men today, if they take a girl out, it's like they question, should I open the car door for her? Not? Will she yell at me? Will she start, having a meltdown if I hold the door open for her? Will she have a meltdown if I hold the chair out for her or take her coat or, treat her like a lady? Will she go off on me? So, but if I don't do it, then are they going to say, wow, you didn't even open the car door? So they're kind of stuck into, man, what do I do? Do I do this or do I do that? Because if I do it, I might get, she might bite my head off. But if I don't do it, she might bite my. So, the women have just backed men into a corner here, with this. And we're funny. It's not, it's not funny, but it's like funny, odd how far we have gotten to this point. And even attack the women of God. If women of God want to have a family, they um they stand behind, they submit to, not in the way we've talked about this before, not the slave labor thing. We'll do another topic about that another time. But that you have that godly marriage, that godly relationship, and they just tear into women about it, that it's, oh, you are setting us back into the 50s. You're just you're a bad thing for women because you want to keep us tied to the kitchen and pregnant. And it's like, that's not how it is at all. But it's a beautiful thing, marriage, that God created, and they just want to rage against it just terribly. Now, with some of these characteristics, you can find it in friends, you can find it in coworkers, you can find it, in your family, if with some people, your boss, your teachers, what have you, that you find where people, where they want, they're controlling. They want to dominate everything. You give them something and they want to take over. They want to run it their way. And wait a minute. Because then you see they're working completely out of their flesh. You see, there's no unity there. There's no, hey, let's come together and do this. They have an agenda. It's very, their way, and they will do whatever they got to do to be able to have that point. They, like to control. They like to character assassinate and make you feel and start to attack you and your self-esteem so that you feel like you don't know anything, calling people names and demeaning them in their profession if you don't do things the way that they want, as we read. And that is a Jezebel spirit. Now, don't get me, somebody who can be spoiled, somebody who can just be, you know, they want things their way and they'll throw a temper tantrum if they don't get it. That's not necessarily Jezebel spirit. Okay, that's just somebody who didn't get their butt cracked enough when they were growing up, and they're just spoiled and throwing a temper tantrum. But we're talking about people who do a full out thing where, kind of like a tear. The enemy sees an area where there could be, there's a lot of good potential, a lot of good things in the move of God. And, the enemy sends people in, especially if you're desperate. That's what you got to watch out for. If you're desperate to get married, desperate for a boyfriend or girlfriend, don't be desperate, because the enemy will send you somebody you wish you never had. So if you're kind of desperate for something, they'll send somebody in, and you'll start to see that, whoa, wait a minute, what have I done? Or uh, what is this person doing? And you're starting to see that they so years of division, and they start wanting control, and they start you know, character assassinating, just like, Jezebel did. And that's what's happening with the women today. That's what they're doing. They want to be they want to be in charge. They want to everything. They want to be in control. They are anti-God. And anything that has to do with anti-God, they will try to destroy it. And this is what you're seeing now with these feminists. They are anti-man, they are anti-God, they are woman the way God made women. They did this whole thing that they've got now, and they are under Jezebel's spirit. And that that is what you have to really watch out for, because they can just come in your life, a friend, someone that you meet, like I said, a coworker, or else. You just have to be careful. And then, if you find yourself with that type of person who has that type of spirit, you have to get them away from you. You have to walk away, or you have to cast that out, because it will spread. Once they get in, once they get in there, as you got to see, and they want something of yours. They want it, as you got to see what she did, what Jezebel did. Um, had and she killed man for his land, and killed his sons to get that land, because getting rid of the sons made it nobody could inherit it. So it really went back to them. And that's what they do. And that's what these feminists do. And these radical feminists that are in the gay communities, not all of them, okay, but the ones that are very, very militant, with that spirit, they will go in, and if you do that, you better do this or this, you better say this or this, or we'll come after you. We will, and we've seen this ourselves. You can look in the newspaper, you can research it, where people have been taken to court for their faith, and against them. So, we really have to be careful. You have to, you know, the biggest thing that I've learned so far, when I was talking about the tares and the wheat, and with, you know, what's coming, be careful of false prophets, false teachers. The biggest thing that Jesus said is to be ready. Be awake, be ready, be ready, be awake, beware, be ready, be awake. These are the things that we have been told. We got told by Peter: beware, watch out, beware, be awake, be ready. This is what we need to do. We need to be awake to this spirit, and we need to come against it in Jesus' name. And you can't let that take over. And you have to be careful too, because there is, now I'm going to use it in the correct text that it is, there also is a mix of a, because of the flesh, there is a mix of narcissism in it. And when I say narcissism, I'm not getting into all that, because we're going to get into all that stuff on another show. A narcissist goes back to, that Greek myth of the person Narcissus, who had saw his reflection in the water, and he was so taken by his reflection, he fell in love with himself, and he just could not take himself away from gazing at himself. He was so in love with himself. He was just like, oh, look. Then I think, if I remember right, he died because he just couldn't leave from gazing at his reflection. That is what a narcissist is. A narcissist, and someone with narcissist personality disorder, is someone who loves themselves. They are in love with themselves. They think They are the greatest thing since sliced bread. They want, and we know that they want them to love them too and say, how great I am. I'm better than this. And where they dig their heels in is when um, somebody else they've got to come in competition with that. And they only put themselves around people who are very successful because that's what they believe. That part there is also a characteristic of the Jezebel spirit. So, with that, if you have any questions, if you feel what I'm saying is incorrect or you want to debate that, send me an email. If you want more questions about it, shoot me an email. If you just want to talk more about it or you want more information, shoot me an email at drcindy@xmediagroup.com. Again, that's Dr. Cindy, CYNDI, at xmediagroup.com. And hopefully hope that you had the ears to hear what I've been speaking about today and gives you ears to hear what the Spirit is speaking. You can go back and rewatch this on the replay, and you can catch those scriptures in Kings. It's mainly in Second Kings to read if you want to read over and learn more about Jezebel and the whole story and everything. So I would just recommend going and reading Kings. And with that, thank you for joining me today. And until next time, this is Hayak. See you later.